skin here. I'll talk about, I'll get down and tell you so more people can see that. Most fossils are of hard parts. There'll be bones, teeth, and for invertebrates like clams and such, shells. Things like flesh, hair, fingernails, internal organs tend to rot very quickly. So generally speaking, you don't get those as fossils. Now again, having said that, here's an exception, and this was basically a mummy. Probably this animal dried out and its skin got good and leathery, and it was tough enough that it survived being buried, and the sediment lithified, made an impression of the skin. So you get a little extra information out of that. That's part of one of those duck-billed dinosaurs again. And if you look, you can actually see part of the vertebrae of the tail are in there. If you take a paleontology course, sort of the first thing they do is modes of preservation. You know, original hard parts, replacement, petrification. Then at the very end, you get the exceptional kind of stuff like this. And I'm going to build on that as we get a little further in. So that's a tail club of an ankylosaur, which are the armored dinosaurs. They tended to be kind of low squat things, 15, 20 feet long or so. So on the small size. But I don't think you'd think it was so small if you'd gotten in the way of that while it was swinging its tail around. Plant-eating animal, but you know, apparently pretty good defensive mechanism. You notice in this area right here, we've got what, 5 different Triceratops skulls? Yeah, and one here. And again, we've got 2 more upstairs, and there are some others in the collection. And one question we might get, say, from taxpayers, actually we did once, where there was a show on squirrels where they said the Smithsonian has 30,000 squirrels in the collection. And for some reason, well, perhaps because my wife is the assistant to the squirrel curator, my phone rang one day, or there was a message on it, why does the Smithsonian have 30,000 squirrels? Don't you think the taxpayers could be better served if these, you know, maybe were divided up with other museums? Well, look at all of us. Every one of us looks different. We're male and female, young and old, and then just individual variation. So when you work with a modern animal, well, for one thing, I think there's something like 270 different squirrels. So you divide that into 30,000. Then anytime you look at 2 animals, they're just like us, they're going to be different. You go out and you collect a sample to get a feeling for what the variation is within the species, and often at one locality. Now, working with modern animals, you can clearly tell, or actually it's not always clear, that they're one species. You can see they're interacting, and you know, by definition they can breed. Well, we don't have that advantage with fossils. We don't know if they were interacting. So again, we try to get a series of specimens, and if it looks like they're blending from one morphology and you have a lot of specimens and a little bit of change, you know, that the range of variation is in little steps, you kind of suspect you're looking at one species. Okay? Then we have another disadvantage. You'll notice every one of these skulls is broken in another way. Very often we have to get a bunch of specimens just to get an idea of what the morphology of the animal is. And then another thing we'll do, if you got enough specimens, we could do what's called destructive analysis, which means we break it. I should have pointed this out before you all got by it. This one particular skull has been cut in half, and you can actually see, this is where the neck attaches here. You can actually see where the spinal cord went into the brain. So the brain would have been in here, the pituitary here. And we really like looking at things like all these holes where the blood vessels come in and out of the brain, where nerves exit the brain, that kind of thing. So some interesting information gotten by taking a less than perfect specimen and cutting it in half. Now this is where technology has changed. I don't think this one would fit on our CAT scan up in anthropology, but Potentially nowadays, you could take this, sweet talk somebody with an industrial size CAT scan, and instead of risking breaking a specimen, have a CAT scan. And in the time that which I consider the recent past, this has come in a number of cases. We had a study done on brain volume in whales. In actual fact, you're not getting brain size, you're getting the cavity where the endocranial volume. And in doing that, their thought was that from early whales to when you make the transition to the modern groups, because they're emphasizing hearing, specifically toothed whales use echolocation, and your baleen whales are communicating probably over long distances, that the brain volume would increase, particularly associated with hearing. And they were actually able to go and CAT scan skulls that we hadn't even started cleaning yet. And in some cases, if there was enough density difference between the infilling, the matrix and the bone, they were actually able to get that data without going through the months of work to clean the specimen. It also makes a difference. We can be much more generous with specimens. If somebody says, I'd like to CAT scan that, versus I'm going to destroy it. Again, there was a really nifty study done on the ear bones of fossil whales, and these are about yay big. And German scientists, actually, this was in the mid-70s, borrowed specimens from us, ground parts of it away, and was looking for structures in the inside, and in some cases was able to infer that fossil dolphins, 15 million years old, were emphasizing high frequency sound, and then therefore presumably using echolocation. We had to be pretty careful. There were some key specimens he would have liked to have looked at, and we didn't have that many. And one of them, once he did all this dissection, it turned out it was not well preserved on the inside, so he could not get all the data he wanted from that. It was kind of tough luck because we couldn't afford to have him destroy something. Same person come in today, ask for one of our better specimens, we'd probably approve it because putting it, we could take it down to a high resolution CAT scan, they could get the same data quicker without destroying the specimen. So in what I consider the little bit of time that I've been working, that was 1976 that was published, the technology has really made a difference on what we can do and what we can allow to be